We are in Revelation 21 and 22. The next 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know how long, maybe 4, okay? We're going to let the text decide. So for those of us who are planners, I'm sorry. I can't tell you. I don't want to spend an hour preaching. You don't want me to preach for an hour, I don't think. And also, I don't want to skip anything here because it's so important. We've been in a series in prophecy, and we've titled it, The End Is... near, because we're living in a cultural moment where we're wondering what's going to happen, where life is kind of precarious. And we've walked through just different pieces of prophecy in the Bible. It is by no means a class, it's a sermon series. So we are preaching that at the heart of this is a God who comes to save us and bring us back to him, not because of anything we had done on our own, but because of his great love for us and his grace and his mercy. And today we begin looking at eternity. And the sermon's titled Together Again. And so we'll just look at 3 things in our outline that will be pieced together as creation is renewed. We'll be back together with God, and all together we'll be made new. We're gonna look at those 3 aspects of this message today, but I want to ask a question. When you think about forever, what do you think about? What will that be like? How do you conceptualize that? Like, what's your imagination? It's easy for us to imagine a couple of months down the line. Yeah, I get to this time of year and I like asking people, like, what are your plans for summer? It's a different rhythm, it's a change in the calendar, and so we do different things. So I'm always curious, like, what are you up to this summer? Well, what will you be up to forever? Together again. Together again makes me once again think about my dogs. Not because, this is not a sermon about how my dogs are gonna be at my house in heaven, okay? This is not that. But it makes me think about my dogs and their longing when I leave the house for me to come home. One of the great things about dogs, I don't know anything about cats, so I can't speak to cats, so God bless you cat people, and we're praying for you, okay? I don't know anything about, sorry, it's a common joke, and Holly will be mad, but that's okay. She loves me. Dogs do not have a concept, a very good concept, or any concept they think of time. So when you leave the house for 5 minutes or for 5 hours, it kind of feels the same to your dog. And when I drive home, I often picture the face of my dog, Spieth. He is a little white dog. He looks like a character from a Star Wars movie. His little face does. And often when I'm at the light at 175th by the 7-Eleven in Woodinville, I just picture his face if I'm stopped there. And I just say, I'm coming, Spieth, I'm coming. You know, and I tell him, like, he can't hear me, but I get so excited to see him. Why? Because he is so excited to see me. He knows the sound of your alternator. Dogs can hear that signature of a car's alternator. And when I open the garage door, Spieth begins to scream like a 12-year-old girl screams for a pop star at a concert. It is the highest pitched screech. It is annoying, it is loud, and it is beautiful, because Spieth knows pretty soon I'm gonna be together again with my dad. And when we think about forever, I want us to think about that phrase, together. Together again. The first thing we see in Revelation chapter 21 is that creation is pieced together. Creation is pieced together. And before we go there, I want to show you this picture, because this is often what we think about when we think about forever. Now, if you look at this picture, it could be confusing to you because you're like, well, that doesn't look like creation. This is a painting from the 18th century from Europe, and it's a picture of what many people, when they think about heaven, what they think about. It's what author Randy Alcorn says is our Christo-Platonic view of eternity, meaning we value the spirit, we don't value the body, and so therefore there's this massive bifurcation in our thinking about heaven. It's a disembodied state, what forever with God will be like. Now, this isn't, again, a class on forever, but there is, the best way to name it is there is a present heaven, and it seems like there we are spirits. Paul says to be absent from the body is to be present from the Lord. But as we've talked about throughout this series, the end is not that kind of present idea of heaven. And honestly, we don't fully understand all the aspects of present heaven, as I'll call it right now. But we do know that what happens in eternity is altogether different. And that we are resurrected like Christ was resurrected. Paul calls Jesus the first fruits. The first fruits are the first fruit on a tree of all the other fruit on the tree that's to come. You're like, duh, Ryan, thank you for explaining that. Well, it's important to know that because if Jesus is the first one, if you believe in Jesus, then what Paul is saying is you will be like him, like Jesus. And so forever is this beautiful picture of not that disembodied state, but of a spiritual and physical reality where God makes all things new. And so let's begin to talk about that. Creation we see first is pieced together. And the first thing I want us to notice is that in this passage, there's a lot of misunderstanding around this. The text is telling us, and the Bible is teaching, that creation will be renewed. It will not be replaced. So look together at Revelation 21, verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. A new heaven and a new earth. And the key word here is new. New. Now, there are two words for new in the original language. And Patrick, working my slides, move forward past the text to the point so we can see the subpoints too, or whoever's running my slides. Sorry about that, my bad. Two words in the Greek for new. The first one is neos. And neos means something that's brand new, that's never existed before. It comes along and it's new. That's not the word here. The word here is kainos. And kainos means something that's renewed in quality, that's transformed, that's made fresh. That's what John is saying. Creation is going to be renewed. It's not going to be replaced. Now, there's a lot of confusion over this because of passages like 2 Peter chapter 3, as Peter talks about the day of the Lord. So if you want to turn there, turn to 2 Peter 3. I'm just going to read verse 10. But the context is Peter is telling us what the day of the Lord will be like. And in verse 10, he says this, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed." So a lot of well-intended men, women, children, even myself at one point in my life have read this passage, have read this verse, and thought it's all going to burn. It's all going to burn. And so that means that creation doesn't really matter. And on the face of it, that's what this text seems to be saying. Will be burned up and dissolved. Well, Ryan, doesn't that mean that it's all going to burn? And so therefore, it's not going to be renewed, it's going to be replaced. If it's going to be done away with, if it's going to pass away, then how are we supposed to understand that? Well, the word here for burned is actually the term that's used for the refining, the purification of metal in fire. And so what Peter is actually saying as he writes these words is not that creation is going to be done away with. Not that God's like, see, this is stupid, this is dumb. I want to do something else. No, God is saying, no, this had good intent. Sin ruined it. Sin spoiled it. Sin made it be what it wasn't supposed to be. And so what I will do at the end of all things is I will purify it and I will make it new. Just like he does to you and me in our lives and in our hearts. So God doesn't give up on what he made. The body that you're in right now, it's not like a costume for forever. It's not going to be discarded. It's going to be resurrected. Your body, this body, it's going to be transformed. How old are you going to be at the resurrection? I don't know. I heard one person say this week, probably 30. We'll probably be 30. And I got to be honest, my 30s, they were my best decade. My 40s have not been great so far. They're getting better, but they haven't been the best. Not in terms of being here. I've been here in my 40s. That's not what I mean. Don't take it personally. I just mean, in this body of mine that God has given me. But my 30s were good. And you're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to look like. I don't know what you're going to look like either. I don't think we can fully understand that. I don't know how to understand the dimension of it and the size of it and my strength, and will I get tired? We're going to talk about that more in the weeks to come. But it also means then that the earth that we walk on, it's not disposable. It's not disposable. It's actually the raw material that God will use to make a new creation. The second thing we see in this first verse is the new heaven and the new earth will be marked by peace. They'll be marked by peace. Let me read that verse again. We're going to put emphasis on the second part of the verse. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. And then there's this phrase, and the sea was no more. Now, this is where it can get kind of complex. This is why some people avoid the interpretation of prophecy because they don't know what to do, but let's just be honest, like we're going by a historical, grammatical, contextual hermeneutic. That means way of interpretation, meaning this is a kind of literature. It was written in a particular time. It was written as a part of a body that's one book of communication from God to us. I don't think this means that in heaven there's no ocean. That's not John's intent here. Like literally there's no ocean. The sea was no more. It is a rhetorical device, a way of communicating a concept that his readers would have easily understood, because the sea in biblical literature is associated with chaos. And so what John is saying here is not about geography. He's trying to stir up our imagination. In Daniel 7, 4 beasts come up out of the sea. In Revelation 13, the beast rises from the sea. In Genesis 1, it seems that the sea is this place that we can't fully control. And doesn't life feel like that? And so what John is saying at the end of the story, he's announcing that the end of every kind of chaos and the power that chaos holds over you and holds over me if we're followers of Jesus. Chaos is no more. So often I feel like chaos is my life. And I come kind of undone by it. Every empire of death, every obstacle, force, or enemy that has ever risen up against the people of God, they're gone. Chaos is gone. And in the place of chaos is not an absence. It's peace, shalom. Not the peace that says there's no more conflict, but the peace that says not only is there no conflict, there is also universal human flourishing. The peace that we experience because the source of chaos has literally been removed. And I just need to ask you today, what is your C? And how can the future speak to today? Maybe it's like you can't stop watching the news. There's chaos in the news. I don't know if you know that. The news cycle is meant to instill chaos. There's chaos as you scroll on social media. Okay? You're doom scrolling. There's chaos there. Some of us are waking up every night, 3 a.m, because of the chaos that has been happening in our lives. And then John says, I looked, and there was no longer any sea. Pieced together. Pieced together. Next, we look at the fact that this passage and the future tells us that we'll be back together with God. And the first thing that we're going to see is that our eternal home actually comes to us. And it's worth pointing that out. Look at verse 2. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Do you see that this theme, I hope, if you're here regularly, I hope you hear me talk about this. Pastors have some things that continue to come out of them. Do you see this happening again? This is the gospel. The gospel is not, I have to get to God. That's religion. Religion is, how can I build a ladder, a bridge, back to forever, back to healing, back to hope, back to life, back to joy, back to thriving, back to wholeness. The gospel says, you can't do that. You can't do it. And so once again, I saw heaven coming down. Jesus comes to earth. When we think about his first coming at Christmas and we look to his second coming every year, we remember this amazing reality of God came down. God became one of us. He put on skin. He came into the neighborhood. He moved in. Why? Because it was the only way that he could build a bridge to us through his life and his death and his resurrection from the dead. Our eternal home comes to us. And the second thing we see here is that God's presence is the defining characteristic of our eternal home. And I heard a loud voice, this is verse 3, from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. So what makes it heaven? It's a good question. It seems to be that this is the center of this particular passage that we're in. This is the climactic moment in this passage. What makes this heaven? Is it the architecture? No, we're going to talk about that. It's fun to think about. Is it the possibility of a new dimension? You know, we see in 3 dimensions, but could more dimensions be opened up to us? Because we know there are more dimensions in creation. We know that. There's a spiritual dimension we can't see, but it's real. Is that what makes it heaven? Is it that we're eternally 30 and that's what makes it heaven? No. It's not the pearly gates as we think about them or the streets of gold. It's God. God is what makes heaven heaven. He's the defining feature of this new world. It's his presence. The dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. John 1:14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. This word in Greek is the same word in the Old Testament that's used to describe the tabernacle, the dwelling place of God with his people. And so what Jesus is saying is, I am completing the story. Like, we can go through the whole arc of Scripture in this regard, and we'll just go through it in 6 verses. You want to do that real quick? Genesis chapters 1, 2, God is with Adam and Eve in the garden. We'll talk more about Genesis 1 and 2 and the resonance here as we continue forward in this. But it says in Genesis 3:8 that God walks with them. And in their sin, they're exiled. The gate to the garden is closed off. And then Exodus 25, as God is giving instructions about building the tabernacle, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. So God is separated, or God's people are separated from their relationship with him through sin. And God says, no, I'm coming back. I'm going to make a tabernacle. 1 Kings, Solomon builds a temple in 1 Kings chapter 8. When he builds it, glory fills it with the Shekinah glory of God, closer still. But the priest can't even go into the presence of God but once a year. And then John 1:14, the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. Emmanuel. But this is not the ultimate picture. Acts chapter 2, after Jesus is raised from the dead, at Pentecost, we become the temple of God as the Spirit indwells every person who follows Jesus. The Spirit of Jesus, if you're a Christian, indwells you. But then here in Revelation, the dwelling place of God is with man. This is permanent, it's universal, it's not mediated. The Garden of Eden has now become a city, a garden city, and the exile is over. The language is pretty emphatic here. God himself. God himself, not an angel, not some representative. And I know some of us think, well, I'd like to be the representative. You know, I'll do it. What did his disciples say? When you get to glory, which one of us can sit on your right or your left, you know? Forever is not defined by where we are or what we do. It's defined by who we are with. God is our home. And then finally, we see that altogether, we're made new. Look at verses 4 and following. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. Every sad thing in eternity will come untrue. And this is where I don't know how to do this, and I want this to be a real moment for you, but can we just pause for a moment and bow our heads and close our eyes together? Can I lead us through a moment of prayer? Because I think that the verse does enough on its own. So can you be present with the Lord? Maybe open your hands to him as just a sign of your openness to his voice, to his love. I'm going to read this verse again. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore. For the former things have passed away. And I just pray, come, Holy Spirit. sit with us in our story. And I have this sense that there are some who have so much shame because of what they've done. Your shame has caused you and others so many tears. I want you to picture what those tears represent and just picture in your heart Jesus just gently, so intimately wiping them away. Or the pain that you felt because of someone else's sin. Everything sad will come untrue. So Jesus, heal now, as only you can. Be with us in our grief and our sorrow and our longing, this side of this moment. But thank you that even in this moment, it's real. Amen. The new creation doesn't pretend, heaven doesn't pretend suffering didn't happen, it answers it. And this is where I don't have a great apologetic or answer for, well, what happens to our memory of those who didn't know Christ that we loved? What happens to our memories of other things? I don't know how that all happens. I can't fully, perfectly answer that. I don't want to try to. Some of these things, they really do belong to God. And we have to trust if God is powerful enough to raise Jesus Christ from the dead, and if he promises he makes all things new, these no longers, these no mores, let it be so that in your life you can trust this mystery that God knows how he will accomplish this very moment for all of us. The final thing we'll look at is that our new identity is what secures a new world. So this is pretty cool. And he who is seated on the throne said, "Behold, I'm making all things new." Also he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." And he said to me, "It is done. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. To the one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son." Again, God is talking about our identity. One phrase I want to just park on. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to give the power just a second. I'm going to keep talking for just a moment. Nobody worry. It's going to be okay. So I'm going to shout, and if it doesn't come back on in a few seconds, okay, that's good. All right, this is weird. So if you are online, we probably don't have you anymore, but Lord bless you and keep you. I want to just park on this phrase, and the lights might start doing weird things. That does not, for those of us, it's not demons, it's electrical failure, okay? Okay, that was fun. That was exciting. It is done. Maybe some of you were asleep and now you're awake. It is done. This word is in the same tense of a phrase that Jesus said as he hung on the cross, "It is finished." And it mirrors what Jesus was saying on the cross. See, when Jesus said to Telestai, "It is finished," in the perfect tense, something that is happening now with happened in the past, that has ongoing results into the future, what God is saying here is, it is done. Something that happened in the past now has ongoing results into the future. To Telestai, it is finished. It's dance party. Our redemption was fully accomplished. And here, what is being communicated is that our redemption is now fully realized. The new world is secured by our new identity because as children of God, he gives it to us as our inheritance. Verse 8 is a sober word. "As for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, all liars, Their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur. These are not dramatic sins. These are everyday sins. And it's a warning for us if we're complacent, if we're cultural Christians, to wake up and let the gospel warm our hearts back to life. I'm just going to go through these in rapid fire succession, how this helps us live today. Number one, if creation will be renewed, then your work today matters. If creation will be renewed, then our work matters. My work matters. If the new heaven and new earth are this creation renewed, not a different universe that replaces them, then whatever we do with our hands, mind, work, and the relationships that we have now, as we invest those moments of our life into those places of our lives, somehow they will carry on into eternity. So if you're a software engineer and you're designing with integrity as worship, you're building God's kingdom. If you're a teacher forming minds with wisdom, you're cultivating little minds for forever. If you're in healthcare and you're over lake and you're sitting with someone who's sick or dying through the night, you're participating in God's economy of care. Your work matters. Number two, if the highlight is being with God, if that's the highlight of all of this passage, right, if that's the center, then make him your home in the here and now. And don't wait for that. If the defining feature of new creation is not what heaven is like, but who is there, then make who is there what you live for today. Make God your home. Randy Alcorn says, nothing is more often misdiagnosed than our homesickness for heaven. We think that what we want is sex, drugs, alcohol, a new job, a raise, a doctorate, a spouse, a large screen TV, but what we really want is the person we were made for, who is Jesus. Stop misdiagnosing what you really want. It's not the role, it's not the career accomplishment, it's not where your family is or how many followers you have, it's Jesus. And then thirdly, if heaven is marked by radical reconciliation, no more, no longer, no tears. If heaven is marked by that, then make that today's priority. If every relational wound is going to be healed in eternity, if every separation is going to be closed, if all of the estrangement that you feel in your relationships will be reversed altogether, then why would we not pursue that as much as it depends on us now? Why do we harbor bitterness? Why do we push people away? Why can't we admit when we've done wrong to another? Why can't we ask for forgiveness? Why are we so prideful? See, if heaven's marked by radical reconciliation, then come on. Let's go after radical reconciliation today. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5, all this is from God, the gospel, who through Christ reconciled to us, to himself, and he gave us the ministry of reconciliation. So God pieces creation back together. He brings us back together with himself. And all together, he makes us new. That's his work. That's why we take communion every week. And so members of our team will come up front. We remember Paul's words that the Lord Jesus, on the night when he was betrayed, took bread. And after he had given thanks, he broke it. And he said, this is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And then in the same way, also after supper, he took the cup. He said, this cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. Bless you. For as often as you eat this bread and you drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes again. So we'll come and continue to worship together. We'll confess together. We'll hope together. And then we'll continue to lean into Jesus and let the Spirit work among us. Let's come to the table now.